Yes, it is I, your humble host, Bill Hatch the Third, coming to you live from the palatial studios of Bald Spots Productions here in the beautiful city of Orange, California. And joining me from a more than acceptable safe social distance through the miracle of telephony is my guest for today, John F. Antal. How you doing, John?
I'm doing great. Great to be on your show.
Oh, it's a real pleasure. I've been looking forward to this. Pardon me, it's a little hot in the palatial studios today.
Yeah.
But yeah. So I got a call a while back about you possibly being interested in being on the show, and that you are a leadership coach, leadership development coach, and that you have a business called Leadership Rising. And I thought that was really interesting because I kind of do a little bit of leadership development myself. I follow the ethical leadership model, and so that's just getting off the ground, much like the podcast is. So tell us a little bit about Leadership Rising. What got you started?
Well, thank you very much again for having me on. And I think that what you're doing is great. I think that you should, in fact, follow the ethical leadership model, because the unethical leadership model doesn't work.
Yeah.
I mean, I've written 17 books, and one of them is Leadership Rising, which we use as for teaching leadership in Leadership Rising, the company. And the idea is simply this: you will rise to the level of your leadership. If your leadership level is low, if you have a hard time working with other people, if you have a hard time trying to convince other people to help you and get things done, if you can't work as a team member, if you're a bad follower, then you will be a bad leader and your life will be hard. You never get anywhere in life on your own, no matter how much you think you did it yourself. You never did it yourself. A lot of people help you along the way. And leadership amplifies your capabilities. Leadership makes you much more than the sum of the parts. So the challenge we all have is, how do we sharpen our leadership every day? Now, when you think about it, let's make a simple metaphor. Let's consider a glass. Consider the glass empty. You fill it up with thoughts, with water, and it's filled to the top. And now you take sips out of that cup throughout the day. Toward the end of the day, it's empty. If you want to fill up your leadership cup, what can you do? What can you do to improve your leadership? If, in fact, we all rise to the level of our leadership, and the level of our leadership decides whether we're going to be successful or unsuccessful, happy or sad in life. Because unless you're living on an island, talking to a volleyball all by yourself, and if you haven't seen the movie, you don't get the joke. But if you haven't seen Capsule, the bottom line is that unless you're stranded on a desert island all by yourself, you have to work with people. And working with people can be joy, and raising your leadership so that you can give back to those people and make things really better for everyone is very fulfilling. So, like that glass of water we were talking about, what can you do every day to raise your leadership awareness?
Well, reading good leadership books is definitely one way.
Excellent. You're exactly right. You need to read to lead. You see, if we don't fill up our minds with positive and good things, they can be filled up with a lot of bad things. And most people don't read. I talked to a group of children, gave a presentation at a school about 3 years ago, and this was 11th grade school, and it was 11th graders, and they had read 100 books a year.
Wow, that's pretty good for teenagers.
It was damn good. Now, these books were not necessarily all War and Peace. They were not necessarily a big, thick book, but they were, in fact, books. Now, when you ask your friends, for instance, how are you doing today? That's an interesting question, and usually you get a lot of responses. They start telling you their ailments and things. My suggestion is, instead of asking them, how they feel or what they're doing, ask them what they're reading. Imagine if you had one book a year, that you read one book a year. Now imagine if you read 10. Now imagine if you read 20.
Right.
Now those books can be anything you want, but if you want to be a better leader, there's a lot of leadership books out there. And my suggestion is you start with Leadership Rising. And the reason I say that is because Leadership Rising is unlike other books that you have seen in the leadership genre. There's a lot of books out there that tell you how someone led very well, or their leadership journey, how they learned to lead better. That's normally what you see in a leadership book. This book is different. This book tells you who you are. So what you do in this book is you have to do exercises. You have to write things down. You have to think. It's interactive. It's an interactive book. Okay. Now, I've been writing interactive entertainment for over 50 years now, almost. I mean, it's amazing how long I've been doing this. Not quite 50, but about 40 years. Now, when you look at those interactive books, I wrote books. That one book was called Armor Attacks, which is a interactive story where you are the hero in the book and you make decisions. So like a video game, before we had video games, this was a choose your own adventure book based on leadership. Okay. And the U.S. Military Academy at West Point used it for 10 years to teach officers. Wow. So I wrote several of those books, those interactive books. And this book, Leadership Rising, came about because many of my friends said, look, you're always talking about leadership. You're writing leadership books. I wrote a book called 7 Leadership Lessons of the American Revolution, where we can learn from our founding fathers on how to be better citizens and better leaders. I wrote a military history book called 7 Leadership Lessons of D-Day, which talks about the invasion of France on June 6, 1944. And you develop your leadership by reading the stories of these leaders in dramatic times and what they did, because you think everything is perfect when you're a leader and you've got all things organized. But in truth, the friction of every operation, the friction of daily operations and daily things always drag you down. And no one is ever 100% ready, rested, tired, and whatever, ready to go. They always have to suffer through this challenge in order to lead properly. And 7 Leadership Lessons of D-Day was about that. So my friends talked to me and said, you've written about all this, but you've never really explained how I can become a better leader. I just read the stories and I can kind of guess. And I said, okay, well, that's what I'm going to do. So I wrote this book, 7 Leadership Rising, which tells you who you are. You have a chance to rate yourself. You have a chance to figure out what your purpose in life is. You determine a strong definition of leadership. Because as Socrates said, if in fact you want to understand something, you must first to define it. All understanding starts with definition. And we all know this is true because we've all been on a vacation where one person in the vacation group thought that was going to be the definition of fun, and the other person thought this was the definition of fun, and it didn't work out. You can see how many times in daily operations, in work, at work, in the government, in history, in major events, how the idea that if you didn't define first what you were going to do, people are arguing and trying to figure out what to do, and a lot of time is wasted. So this book takes you through that. And so therefore, I wrote this book, and we also started a company called Leadership Rising based on the book. And we teach leadership to companies across the country. And I do leadership teaching by MS Teams and by Zoom also, so I can do some of it placelessly. And I've done things like teach the Australian Army. I've done leadership experiences with units in the U.S. military across the nation. I've also done companies and individuals. And so one of the things that we do is we have a multi-spectrum capability. everyone who is interested in raising their leadership and learning more about how to be a better leader in rising to the level of their leadership, we can help them.
Okay. That's great. Yeah. So, so how would one get started as a rising leader in Leadership Rising? What's the entrance? What's the entryway like?
Well, first of all, we have a website that you can go to, leadershiprising.net, which you can find out all about us. But you can also go online to Amazon or any bookstore, and you can buy a copy of Leadership Rising by John Antal. That's me. And the best way to start is to read this first, is to actually take the time to focus your mind and read. One of the things that I talk about a lot and I teach is how to focus. You see, most of us live our lives with very fuzzy thinking.
Yeah.
We have a general idea that we want to go in one direction, kind of maybe if we feel like it. But we don't have a very focused view. The people who can focus their minds, their heart and their soul, who can focus what they have as a human being, can get what they need and can help other people. They can make other people's lives and their own life much better. So one of the things I work hard on is to try to change fuzzy thinking into focused thinking. For instance, many people say, I want to be rich. And that doesn't mean anything.
It's a wish.
Right. It is a wish. And in fact, it isn't even a very clear wish.
No.
Because
That's one the genie will have fun with.
Yeah, because exactly right. And you've seen it so many times in some movies like Bedazzled and stuff where you wish for something and it turns out not to be what you thought. Because unlike Socrates, you did not define it well. You see, all understanding starts with definition. So my suggestion is you start with buying from Amazon or from Casemate, my publisher, which is in London, the Leadership Rising book. And you go through it because it's a workbook. It's a book that will challenge you to think. Now, if you want a book that you don't have to think, well, I don't know too many that are like that. But if you want to find one, this is not it. This book will ask you questions that you really have to work hard at. For instance, what is your purpose in life?
Okay.
It's an important question.
It is an important question. It can be a difficult one to answer.
Even more difficult if you've never thought about it.
Right. And I doubt most people have. I really haven't thought of it in those terms before. So it kind of takes me a bit off guard. What is my purpose in life?
Don't answer.
I guess that depends on which part of my life you're asking about.
Don't answer the question yet. Let me just build you up a little bit here. So,
okay,
the whole concept of purpose. If you have a purpose in life, and you are moving toward achieving that purpose, even a small step, a half step, but you're moving toward it. You're moving toward that purpose. You can actually find happiness and fulfillment. It's when you're moving away from your purpose that you really aspire to that people get angry and upset and disappointed and sad and depressed.
Right.
I mean, if you want to be an athlete, but you never practice, you never ever learn how to be an athlete, you will not become an athlete. It's like the old, like we were saying earlier about being rich. That means nothing. So what you want to do is you want to have a purpose in life. Now, you could say, I don't need a purpose in life. I will be purposeless. Think about that.
Mm-hmm.
The negative.
I've met a few people like that.
No, of course you have. In fact, 99% of the people in the world are like this because they don't know what their purpose is.
Yeah.
They think their purpose is to make money. And then when they find out that they have all the money that they thought they need more. And it never ends.
Mm-hmm.
So money isn't purpose. Money is just a tool.
Right.
Money is a tool of time. If you have money, you can save time. If you want money, you give up your time.
Mm-hmm.
Give your time to someone, and they give you some money for it. But how much is your time worth?
No.
And there's no way of knowing how much your time is worth unless you know your purpose.
True.
So your purpose in life makes a difference. And since we don't even ask the question, purposelessness happens all the time. And therefore, there is a tremendous amount of waste and sadness and depression. Now, again, if you have a purpose, if you have something that you think, not just someone you want to be, your purpose is not your job.
Mm-hmm.
A job is a means to an end.
Right.
Now, if you have a job you love, it can be part of your purpose. I am blessed that my job is part of my purpose.
Mm-hmm.
You see, my purpose in life is to develop leaders and inspire service. To develop leaders and inspire service. And every day that I can help develop leaders and inspire service to others, then I'm fulfilling my purpose. And I feel like I'm doing something worthy. Right now, I'm doing that by talking with you and your audience. Because there are some people out there who might actually listen and focus and say, I don't have a purpose. I've never even thought about that. So what is my purpose? What is my purpose in life? One of the ways that you can find it out is by, again, Leadership Rising, because what it does is it takes you through the steps. Now, you don't have to follow my steps, and my steps help you see who you are. I ask you questions that you have to answer. For instance, what are your strengths, your character strengths? Do you know them? You should. Nobody knows you better than you, but if I asked you to say, give me your character strengths, you'd have to think about it. Because you have a fuzzy idea. You don't have a focused idea. And then I would ask you other questions like, what are your values? What do you believe in? What would you fight for? What would you die for? What are your values? And if you don't know what those are, then you have to think about them. And if you don't have any, well, that's sad. Because values make the person. Character matters.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, that's what Leadership Rising is about, and that's what our company is about. It's about empowering people to get to know who they are. And then once they can be all they can be, once they learn everything that they are, they can rise in their leadership awareness and they can be better leaders. Now, we can't make you a better leader. You have to make yourself a better leader.
Right.
But we can raise your awareness to the point where you can understand better what you need to do. So the idea of leadership is fundamental to human life. And it's fundamental to our success or our failure, our happiness or our sadness in any endeavor. So therefore, for me, my purpose to develop leaders and inspire service is something that I'm very proud of and happy with. And other people can have their own purpose and be very proud and happy of what their purpose is. But to have no purpose and to have no idea of how to apply that with leadership is almost sad, because in the human condition, when you think about what it means to be alive, we have been given such a wonderful, blessed gift. Imagine if you were a dot of light, just a dot of light, one small dot. Okay. And to your left is nothing but the eternity of all time before you were born.
Okay.
How much time is that?
A lot.
Right. And to your right is the darkness of all the time that will exist after you're gone. And how much time is that?
That's a lot too.
Yeah, no kidding. And you're this dot. What an amazing gift you've been given. Mm-hmm. You're not a rock.
Right.
You are alive. You are sentient. You have cognitive abilities. Now, some of us have more or less. Some people are born with disadvantages. Some people, have some great advantages. It doesn't matter. You're that dot of light, no matter who you are. That's why life is so precious and so wonderful. And we treat it sometimes as if it's nothing, and that is so sad. Because when you look at the darkness on both sides, it's tremendous. It's absolutely amazing that we are even here, and a miracle that we are. So if you want to make the most of that dot, if you want to make the most of your time, then understanding leadership and raising your leadership awareness will allow you to live amongst human beings and work with human beings and accomplish things with human beings that you won't be able to do if your leadership level is low.
Right. Right. So other than reading books, what are some ways that we can fill that glass?
Well, that's a good question. Volunteer every chance you get to lead.
Okay.
You want to be a better leader? Volunteer to lead. Right? Most people won't. It's too hard. You know, I want to raise my leadership awareness, but I just want to do it easy. Really? Really? Now, all my life, I've been in leadership situations. You know, when I was in school, before I went to West Point, I attended the United States Military Academy at West Point. Before I went to West Point, I was in leadership positions from grade school on. You know, in different things, sports teams, Cub Scouts, you know, Boy Scouts, those kind of things, Civil Air Patrol. Then I got into the Army, and I was in the United States Military Academy at West Point. That's a leadership school. And I served 30 years in the United States Army, leading American soldiers around the world. And very proud of them and what they did for our country and how all of that makes a difference.
Absolutely.
Then when I retired from the Army, I worked 15 years in the interactive entertainment business. Yes, I went from soldier to video game maker. No kidding. In fact, I helped make some games that you might know about. For instance, I was involved with a company called Gearbox Software, and we made games like Halo for the PC.
Okay.
So if you ever played Halo, we made Brothers in Arms. Then they made many other games. And so the bottom line is that you can do many things in many different areas. And so when I was leading soldiers, that was leadership. And when I was leading high technology teams to work together to create things, that was leadership as well. And then after I retired from that job, I've been writing and teaching, and now with Leadership Rising. So I feel that I have been blessed in many ways, and I look forward to giving back to the people that I meet and the people that want to raise their leadership.
Okay. No, that's great. Yeah, there's always opportunities because, like you said, nobody wants to lead. And so there's always an opportunity to volunteer for those positions. Well, let's see. So
seek out leadership positions. Yeah. Seek out leading. And by the way, it is hard to be a leader. So it is amazing how if you stand up and take charge, you know, in a good, positive, you know, cooperative way, people will appreciate that. And sometimes people won't.
That's true. Some people have a hardship with a difficult time with leadership.
Yeah, they won't
authority of any kind.
Yeah, they won't stand up and they won't lead. You know, they feel that they're not worthy. So one of the things I teach people is that you know you have the great, wonderful gift of having a mind and a heart, and you put that together in a soul, and you can think about that in many different ways. But imagine if in your mind you're playing movies all the time. All of us do this. We play movies in our head. And many people play a movie that's very negative. I'm not good enough. I'm not handsome enough. I'm not smart enough. I'm not strong enough. I'm not young enough. All these bad things in our heads. Why? Why do we do this? We control the cinema of our mind. If you control the cinema of your mind, if you control the movies in your head, change them.
Yeah.
Don't allow bad movies to play. Stop it and put a good movie in. control the cinema of your mind, you'll have a better life.
Yeah.
And there's lots of ways that you can help do that. One of the ways is positive affirmations.
Mm-hmm.
In other words, get up in the morning and say, today's going to be a great day. Now, that's pretty general, but nonetheless, that's a lot better than, boy, today's going to be bad. If you start off with a bad attitude, well, attitude is, everything in many cases. You have got to have either a positive or a negative attitude in your head. Put a positive one there every chance you get.
Yeah, one of the things I've taught to help people get that positive mental attitude is to every morning write down a gratitude list.
Exactly.
Write down 10 things. It can be anything at all, and
right.
And that you're grateful for. And it doesn't have to be a list of big things, and it doesn't have to be different than the one you wrote the morning before.
That's exactly right.
You just have to have that attitude of gratitude to shift into a positive gear.
And then every night when you go to bed, say, what good did I do today? Yeah,
for sure.
Benjamin Franklin used to do that.
Yeah. The fun uncle of our country.
Yeah. A very good man. People should know more about him.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Being a bit of a funny person, I like his letter "Fart Proudly," but the lesser known work of his, where he wrote to, I believe it was the Science Academy in Brussels, that people should be putting forth effort to create some way to make a body's odors more pleasant.
He was a very practical guy, from inventing stoves to bifocals to helping forge the Declaration of Independence. So, quite a Renaissance man, and someone that we can all look up to. But it's good to have role models, which is another thing. You asked me, what you can do. Others are to pick role models. In fact, the best athletes pick a role model to emulate. And they have in their mind a vision of what this athlete did in their area, and if they can, in fact, visualize that clearly with very focused thinking, then they can help become that.
Absolutely. Role models are an incredible source of leadership skills. Especially if you give yourself the permission to be better than that role model. This role model did A, well, I'm going to do A+1, and it's possible. I mean, nobody's perfect. Everybody falls at least a little short, and so there's always the opportunity to be better than your role model. Don't fall into the trap that they're the best that it will ever be, because it's just not true.
Right, but if you don't have any, think about the weakness. Right. So the idea of having one or two or three role models that are experts in things that you want to become, who have excelled in areas that you want to be more like, that's a great way of also filling up that cup.
Absolutely. Yeah. No, there's definitely a lot of great things. The book, again, in case you missed it, is Leadership Rising, available wherever fine books are sold, and it is a workbook. So I'm guessing there's no electronic version available.
Actually, no, there's not an electronic version, but there probably will be a Kindle. Well, there's a Kindle version, but I mean, there's no audio version. But this This has, when you stop to work an element, where it says fill in the blanks, it's usually so. Just go on Amazon or go to Casemate Publishers, and you can get the book there.
And the website is leadershiprising.net.
That's correct.
.net. I will have that in the description so people can find it easily, and get over to you for more expert assistance.
Great.
Let's see. What else? Got any good stories from your time in the military? From your time of service?
So how much more time do we have?
Well, these usually go between 30 and 45 minutes, depending on how interesting things are.
Okay,
Um,
great.
yeah.
Well, let me tell you a story.
So,
Let me tell you a couple of stories. Okay, first of all,
okay.
when I was a brand new second lieutenant, now
Mm,
you have to understand, I had been through airborne school, which is paratroop school.
hmm.
I'd been through ranger school because I'm a ranger, Army Ranger. I had graduated from West Point, and those were all crucibles that taught me how to lead and gave me confidence. But as a second lieutenant, you start at the bottom. That's your first job in
Hmm.
the Army. I was assigned to the 3rd Armored Division in Germany back in the Cold War when we still had the East Germany and West Germany. And my
Right.
job was to have my platoon on the border looking at the Russians who were just on the other side.
Wow.
So most people don't realize how close we were to going to war during those times, but we had
Yeah.
several incidents where we were on the border, locked and loaded, and hoping that nothing would happen, and luckily nothing did. But
Yeah.
the first day that I got to Germany and I was put in charge of a tank platoon, I was assigned as the platoon leader for 3rd Platoon, Charlie Company, 3rd Battalion, 32nd Armor in the 3rd Armored Division. My company commander, who was a captain, said, "Lieutenant Antal, I don't know if I want to put you in charge of 3rd Platoon. 3rd Platoon has a very good platoon sergeant, and I don't know, he's been doing very well without a lieutenant. And I think that I could, he would do fine if you weren't there. So maybe I'll just have you work on staff, on company staff for a while." Now, I don't know if he was testing me or what, but I looked at him and said, "No, sir. I want to lead a platoon, and I'll get along with the platoon sergeant very well, I assure you." So he said, "Okay." So he sent me down, and I went down to the motor pool to find my platoon for the first time.
Mhm.
Now, in those days, we had M60 tanks. Those were tanks before the Abrams tanks. No kidding.
Right.
In the motor pool, you went down there, and all the soldiers that were in the platoon, and the platoon was supposed to have 5 tanks with 4 soldiers per tank. So 20 soldiers in a tank platoon. And you were supposed to have those soldiers maintain the tanks. They would do maintenance on the tanks, and they would also clean them and take care of them. So I go down to the platoon, and we only have 12 soldiers. And the reason for that was because there were huge cuts in the military, and we didn't have
Right.
people being paid, and we had an understrength military. So we had 12 soldiers doing the work of 20. And I
Wow.
went down and I just watched for a little bit, and I saw Platoon Sergeant Larry Stipe. And there he was leading the platoon. You could tell he was in charge. He had a gentle hand with everything, but boy, he got things done. So I walked up to him. He looked at me. He was greasy from the top to the bottom because he'd been working underneath a tank. Didn't have a hat on, had coveralls. And he looked up at me and said, "What can I do for you, Lieutenant?" And I said, "Sergeant Stipe, I've been assigned to be the platoon leader for 3rd Platoon." And he looked at me and he spit on the ground and looked at me. And I said, "Sergeant, I want you to understand. I don't know anything about running a platoon. I've never been a tank platoon leader in my life. I don't know anything about tanks. Will you teach me?"
Yeah.
And he looked at me and said nothing for almost a minute, which seemed like forever.
I bet.
I just stood there and didn't say a word. And he looked up and finally said, "Damn it, sir, I've been waiting for you. Go on up and get to the headquarters, get some coveralls, come on back down, and you'll go to school." And we shook hands, and that was the greatest partnership that I've ever had in the Army. It was absolutely amazing. Now, I could have come in there and been a real jerk and messed it all up.
Right.
God only knows what inspired me to do that the way I did, but it worked. And so I learned a tremendous amount by going through those kind of experiences over and over and over again.
Mhm.
So I commanded a cavalry regiment at some point when I was a colonel. So a regiment is a lot of soldiers and a lot of tanks and a
Yeah.
lot of other things. So all of those lessons build up and you learn more and more. And then later on, when I retired from the Army, I worked several times, as I said, with high-tech teams in the interactive entertainment business. And then I started teaching leadership after I
Mhm.
left that, after 15 years in the interactive entertainment business, in the video
Wow.
game business. So I really love teaching leadership, and I love the idea. Again, my purpose in life is to, develop leaders and inspire service.
Mhm.
And I was hired by one CEO who said, John, I've got a real leadership problem in this company. I want you to come and I want you to fix it. So I came to meet him, and I went into his office, and he had his smartphone out, and he was looking at it. He was playing with it, because he's a multitasker. So he's
Mhm.
multitasking away, and he says, yeah, I'm listening. Go ahead. I got this leadership problem, and I want you to fix it. So do you think you can fix it? And I said, I think I can. And he's still looking at his phone. And I said, when do you and I start? You see,
Yep.
the greatest gift you can give anyone is your time.
Yeah.
The greatest gift you can give anyone is not just your time, but your focus. Your
Mhm.
focus time. You see, you can go home to your wife or to your spouse, and you can spend time on the couch watching television, but you're not spending time with them.
Right.
But if you spend 30 minutes of focus time where you just listen to their stories and talk with them and be with them and have no distractions. And people say, how can I
Mhm.
do that? My life is so distracting. Yes, we live in distracting times, and we achieve that distraction because we want it. If you want to focus, you can focus, and you can focus no matter how much noise is going on, no matter what's happening. I've been able to focus when things were exploding,
Mhm.
when people were wet, cold, hungry, and scared.
Yeah.
What you have to be able to do is focus and change that fuzzy thinking into focused thinking. And if you spend 30, 40 minutes with someone in focused time, that's the greatest gift you can give anyone.
Mhm. Yeah. Because well, we mentioned Benjamin Franklin earlier, and he once said something to the effect of time is the only thing that you cannot get back.
That's right. Yep. We all have the same amount of minutes and seconds. I mean, we
Yep.
may live longer or shorter, but the point is that a minute is 60 seconds for everyone who's in that
Yep.
60 seconds. How you use it is up to you.
Yes. Yes. Absolutely. And
Well,
yeah.
hey, I've really enjoyed the interview. I think it's fantastic. I want to wish you the greatest success in what you do.
You
And
too.
if you ever want to have me on one of your shows, I'm happy to consider that if we can work the schedule out.
Would always be happy to have you.
All right, outstanding. All right,
Awesome.
Billy, have a great day, and
You too.
forward to talking with you sometime in the future.
Thanks again.
Okay, thank you.
And thanks everybody for tuning in.
All right, take care.
All right. You too. Bye. Thank you all for tuning in. This has been a presentation of Bald Spots Productions. I'd like to thank my producer, my beloved mother, Eileen Hatch. I, of course, am your humble host. I'd like to thank my Ed McMahon, Rudy Corlew. I would especially like to thank my special guest, John Antal of Leadership Rising. Support the show if you feel so led over on patreon.com. We're known as Bald Spots Pro. Don't you dare miss YWL Online. You can find us on Facebook, YouTube, and wherever fine podcasts are offered. Be sure to tune in next time for Braca Gets. We'll also be joined by perennial favorite Tony Jetton Salimi. Please be sure to like, comment, and share. Subscribe, follow, whatever it is you've got to do to kick that algorithm into gear and help us reach more people. That is the point, after all. If you or someone you know needs support now, call or text 988 or chat 988lifeline.org. 988 is the suicide and mental crisis lifeline here in the States.